There is a specific plant that we have been conditioned to despise. For 10,000 years, it sustained empires, clothed armies, and healed minds when no other remedy could. However, in less than a century, we labeled it as food for the poor and allowed it to vanish from our plates. Yet buried within its flesh lies a secret that the human brain has been waiting for, a molecule that modern medicine now sells in bottles, even though nature once grew it freely in every garden. This is the story of Father Beans, the forgotten cure we dismissed as ordinary. The archive of this plant begins not in a laboratory but in a tomb in Galilee, Israel, at an archaeological site dating back to 8500 BCE. Inside clay vessels that remain sealed for 10 millennia lay fava bean seeds, perfectly preserved. Researchers carbon dated them in 2015 and found they were still viable after 10,000 years. The people who stored them were among humanity's very first farmers. They possessed no written language, no metal tools, and no pottery, but they understood something we have forgotten. In a land where survival meant choosing exactly what to plant first, they chose beans before grain. These were not ordinary seeds, they were medicine disguised as food. Each bean carried up to 0.5% L-DOPA. This is the same molecule that pharmaceutical companies synthesize today to treat Parkinson's disease, depression, and dopamine deficiency. It is the compound that makes us feel motivated, alive, and clear-minded, and it grew freely in the soil. From Galilee, the bean conquered the ancient world. By the Bronze Age, it appeared simultaneously in Spain, Greece, and Switzerland. It was a global network of healing long before ships, roads, or empires. The ancient Egyptians placed them in tombs as food for the afterlife. The Romans ate them at festivals honoring the dead, believing the beans held the power to communicate between worlds. They were not wrong about the power. They simply did not have the modern language for neurotransmitters. When the mind grew dark, when winter stole the color from life, or when soldiers marched too long and felt nothing, the bean brought them back. Roman physicians prescribed them for melancholy, and medieval herbalists called them the bean of balance. The science finally caught up in 1913. A biochemist named Marcus Guggenheim isolated L-DOPA from Vicia faba, the fava bean, for the first time. He had no idea he was extracting one of the most powerful molecules in brain chemistry. It was not until 1938 that scientists discovered L-DOPA converts directly into dopamine in the human brain. The pharmaceutical industry took note, and within decades, synthetic L-DOPA became the gold standard for treating Parkinson's disease. But the bean that gave birth to the medicine was forgotten. Then the erasure began. By the 18th century, as Europe grew wealthier, meat and dairy replaced beans. Fodder beans became peasant food. They were viewed as a mark of poverty, not wisdom. In Britain, where fava beans had fed the population for 5,000 years, they disappeared from kitchens almost overnight, relegated to animal feed. But fodder beans, like all forgotten knowledge, do not vanish. They wait. By the early 2000s, the world faced a crisis of the mind. Depression rates climbed, and Parkinson's disease diagnoses doubled. The brain was struggling. Doctors wrote prescriptions for dopamine-altering drugs at record rates, but patients began to ask if there was another way. In 2005, researchers began testing the forgotten cure against the synthetic drug. The results were startling. Fresh fava beans raised plasma levodopa levels to a degree comparable to standard medication doses, but the effects lasted longer. Patients reported prolonged on periods, those hours when movement feels fluid and the mind feels clear. Modern neuroscience revealed why L-DOPA crosses the blood-brain barrier, a feat few molecules can achieve. Once inside, it converts directly to dopamine, flooding depleted neural pathways with the neurotransmitter the brain craves. This applies to more than just Parkinson's disease. Dopamine governs motivation, focus, and reward. When dopamine drops, depression follows. Recent studies even link inflammation in the frontal lobe, a key driver of depression, to dopamine deficiency. The bean that fed the ancients may be the key to treating the modern mind. But to reclaim this power, we have to relearn how to grow it. We have to open the lost manual of the fodder bean. Unlike modern crops, this plant does not want to be pampered. It wants to work. The first secret is frost defiance. While modern gardeners wait for warm weather, the father demands the cold. If your ground is not frozen solid, meaning above 15 degrees 6 or 10 degrees Celsius, you sow these now. Plant them in the dead of winter and push the large seeds 2 inches deep. They are winter warriors. While the rest of the garden sleeps, they build a massive root system, ready to launch the moment the sun returns. The second secret is the nitrogen engine. Ancient farmers did not just plant fava for food, they planted it to heal the soil. The fava is a nitrogen fixer. Its roots host bacteria that pull nitrogen from the air and lock it into the earth. It requires no fertilizer because it creates its own. Every crop you plant after fava beans, whether it is your tomatoes, your corn, or your squash, will grow bigger because the bean was there first. The third secret is the pinch. This is a lost technique from the cottage gardeners of old. In late spring, the plant shoots up tall, but it has one enemy, the aphid, which loves the soft top growth. The solution is ruthless and brilliant. When the first pods set low on the plant, you simply pinch off the top few inches of growth. This removes the pest target. More importantly, it forces the plant's energy down away from the leaves and into swelling the pods, concentrating the harvest. And when that harvest comes, we must unlearn how to eat them. The stigma of peasant food gave us boiled, mushy gray beans. That is not the father. Harvested young, they are sweet and tender. Culinary historians remind us that the ancients did not boil the life out of them. They roasted them. Fava chips roasted in the oven with olive oil, cumin, and sea salt until golden create a high-protein, dopamine-boosting snack. Or try green gold, blanched beans blitzed with garlic and cilantro. This is bioavailable medicine. But there is a caution. Ancient wisdom always respects power. Fava beans are not for everyone. A genetic condition called G6PD deficiency, common in Mediterranean and African populations, makes this bean dangerous for some. For them, it triggers favism, a breakdown of red blood cells. This is why Pythagoras forbade his followers from eating them. He knew they were powerful enough to heal, but also powerful enough to harm. For those with the deficiency, avoidance is absolute. For the rest of us, they are a gift. Today, science is catching up to what the ancients knew. NASA researchers are studying fava beans as a top candidate for Mars missions. They are high-protein, nitrogen-fixing, and a morale booster for astronauts in the dark of space. Universities across Europe are identifying bioactives in the bean that may protect against neurodegeneration. Perhaps the most radical rediscovery is this. The brain was never meant to be fed by factories. For 10,000 years, humans ate foods that naturally supported dopamine production. Then, in a single century, we replaced them with processed foods devoid of the compounds our neurons require. Depression, ADHD, and brain fog are not just diseases. They are messages. The brain is asking for what we stopped giving it, and the answer is still growing in the ground. The bean that clothed Bronze Age kings, fed Roman soldiers, and sustained medieval peasants through famine never stopped offering its gifts. It simply waited for us to remember. This knowledge is not lost. It is waiting for us to reclaim it. If this story has changed the way you look at the humble plants in your garden, please subscribe and like the channel. We are unearthing the history and the natural wisdom that the modern world tried to bury. Help us plant the seeds for a better future. The next vault of forgotten treasure will open very soon.